Hello, welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. Today I am going to be talking about the time someone put a hit on my cellmate. So be sure to like and subscribe, and here we go. This took place in El Dorado, and I've spoken a lot about my time in El Dorado before. And at this time, I was a business vice president in a nonprofit organization known as the JCs. I was basically the second in command. And my cellmate, Kevin, he was the president of the organization. Now, we taught classes, we had fundraisers, we had different projects in the prison. We had a sewing project, we had fitness programs, we did all sorts of stuff. And because of everything that we did, we had some connections within the prison. You know, we talked to administration. You know, we had a good rapport with them because of our classes. We operated out in the gym and yard area, so we had a good rapport with the gym and yard area. We were always in the library. We had a good rapport with the library. And we could get stuff done. You know, if inmates wanted in a class, we could get them in the class. If they wanted to be a part of a card tournament or a weightlifting tournament or something like that, if they wanted to get out of their cells to do something kind of fun and positive with their time, we could make that happen. You know, we weren't staff, but we knew all the staff, and we could get our boss to get them on a list or get them called out or whatever. We could get people out of their cells and involved in positive stuff. And we did fundraisers. So if we were selling a certain food product on a fundraiser and someone let us know ahead of time that they were going to want some of that, we would order extra, so we made sure that we had what people wanted in stock when the fundraiser came around. When I say we developed connections with people, it wasn't just staff that we built connections with and, you know, your average inmate. We had friends that were shot callers. You know, I did legal work for a shot caller for one of the biggest white gangs in the state of Kansas. You know, we knew the heads of the GDs. As a matter of fact, they lived next door to us for a while. We were in tight with a Native American call out. You know, we were tight with everybody who was worth knowing in the prison. One day someone approached Kevin. He was a GD. He was a higher up. You know, I wouldn't say that he was the shot caller for the facility or for the state or anything like that. But he was a GD, and he came to my cellie Kevin and he said, "Hey, someone put a hit out on you. I can't tell you who it was, you know, because of our rules, but I can tell you that someone put a hit out on you for $200. Watch your back." Now, the first thing that you would say is, you know, well, who did this and why? The why was pretty easy to ascertain. In prison, you usually want to stay away from politics. You don't want to run nothing, because that makes you a target. And we were running a nonprofit organization. We were bringing in over $100,000 a year for this nonprofit organization. We were doing big things, teaching classes and stuff, and people didn't like it. There were inmates that didn't like it. There were staff members that didn't like it. And we weren't the most popular people sometimes. People see you doing good, and a lot of times they get very resentful and bitter. You know, people don't like to see other people doing good sometimes. There's a lot of folks in this world that want to see other people miserable. But we didn't know who put the hit out on Kevin. And $200 is a lot of money in prison. That's a big hit. So we figured someone was going to try to take that money. Someone was going to go ahead and fulfill that contract. Things got tense for a while. You know, Kevin had to holler at his friends. I had to holler at my friends. We hollered at the native call out. We hollered at the GDs. Everything was tense on the yard because everyone knew there was a price on Kevin's head. And, you know, there were a lot of friends who had our backs. You know, I was walking with Kevin anywhere he went about 10 to 15 feet behind. That way, if anyone came up behind him, I'd be able to see that threat and neutralize it before they got to Kevin. But it wasn't just me. People would click up on the yard. People would group up. And so you'd see a group of natives over here watching Kevin. You'd see a group of GDs over here watching Kevin. You'd see a group of white boys over here watching Kevin. And they were all just waiting for that moment when someone tried to take that hit. We thought initially that the person who put the hit out on Kevin was a GD. We had a member of our board of directors that was a GD. And he and Kevin had some disagreements in the past. And he kind of wanted that president spot. That was our first place to look. And some heat came down on him. You know, he didn't get hurt, but he came out with his homeboys, you know, for protection because he knew this was a serious thing. All the major players in the prison were trying to figure out who put this hit on Kevin. And whoever did it was going to get smashed. But we came out, we had to sit down, and it wasn't him. But at that time, we didn't figure out who did it. Whoever put the hit out on Kevin figured out that, you know, word was going to get out about who it was, and they were going to get smashed. So everything died down. You know, it kind of just went under the table. We thought that it was all over, but it wasn't. There was a guy who had wanted to teach classes for us named Mike. And we suspected that he might have been the person, but we didn't have any proof for it, and we weren't pursuing it. He wanted to teach classes for us, and we wouldn't let him because he was a hothead. He had a reputation for stabbing people. He'd been shipped out from different facilities because he stabbed folks, and he had an attitude problem. He was not easy to work with, and we didn't want him representing our organization. So we wouldn't let him participate in classes. But he was the deputy warden's pet. We had a deputy warden of support services who just thought that he could do no wrong and was pushing for him to get in our classes even though we said no. And it's hard to tell administration no in a prison. But we were going back and forth about this. Well, the dude ended up telling on some people, the wrong people, in the dog program. And he got taken off the yard. You know, some people beat him up. Some people from a white group, from a white gang beat him up. And he went to the hole. And when he came back out of the hole, they smashed him again. So they took him off the yard because they're not going to keep releasing him from the hole and then, you know, have him get beat up every time. So they sent him to another prison. The problem was people assumed that this dude got smashed behind what was going on with Kevin and the hit that was out on him. And somebody went to EAI, which is basically the intelligence unit in prison, and they went to them and said, hey, Kevin's a part of a white gang that has infiltrated the XLJCs, and that's why this dude got smashed, because he put a hit out on Kevin, and etc. This was problematic because, for one, it wasn't true. The dude just messed with the wrong people. But this guy was a warden's pet. You know, he was the deputy warden's little flunky. When, you know, news started going around about this, when rumors started going around about that, people started getting shipped out. Anyone who was suspected to have anything to do with that white group was getting shipped out to other facilities. There was a big investigation. EAI brought Kevin in and they interrogated him. They said, hey, were you behind this dude getting jumped? Are you a part of a white gang? There's allegations going around that you are a member of a big white gang that has taken over the XLJCs, you know. And of course, Kevin denied all of it. And then they called me in and they did the same thing. I was in the office one day shortly after this stuff started happening, shortly after I was interrogated and Kevin was interrogated. Freedom, who I have spoken about in other videos, called me out of the office and he wanted to talk. And he said, hey, I know Kevin's a member of a white group, of a white gang, if I run for president, if he were to go to the hole and I run for president, am I going to get jumped on this yard? And those weren't the exact words that he used, but alarms immediately started going off in my head because the words that he was using, they were the same words that I heard from the EAI dude in my interrogation, you know, within a couple days of Freedom calling me out of the office. So I did my best to just nod my head and smile at Freedom, because in that moment, I realized that this dude was a major rat. Like super rat, like Master Splinter. You know what I'm saying? And so I get back to the cell, and I tell Kevin what went down. And, you know, there was no time to even do anything about it. Right after that, Kevin got shipped out. He showed up on the drop sheet. They told him that he was transferring to another facility. And the next day he was gone. It left a power vacuum in the XLJCs. Most of the heavy hitters from that white gang were gone. There were a few dudes left who were officers, but most of them were gone. And Kevin along with him, because he was assumed to be a part of that group. I got pretty upset about that, and I ended up stepping away from the XLJCs for a while. A guy named Wally ended up running for president of the organization, and he got that president spot. Freedom did not get it. Matter of fact, Freedom was, you know, asked to leave the JCs, and Freedom and I had some words. I told him exactly what I thought of him. I told him what he was, and I asked him if he wanted to do something about it. I told him, you know, here's what I think about you, and if you don't like it, we can go over here and handle it right now. I called him every name that you shouldn't call someone in prison unless you want to fight. I called him a rat. I called him a bitch. I called him a punk. And this is a guy who'd done almost 30 years over a murder, who had a hard 40. You know, he was a lifer. And he just said, I understand. That's where this guy's balls were. You know what I'm saying? So he had to step away. He had to go, you know, he was not welcome there. And, you know, he ended up getting shipped out eventually. I don't remember what for. I don't know if he asked for a transfer or what. But I think after everything came to light, he was real nervous about staying on that yard. And, you know, he went to another facility. Funny thing is, he ended up at the same facility as all those white dudes that he was telling on. So, didn't work out well for him. And I stepped away from the JCs for a while, and then I got back involved up until I left, which was late 2015. Late 2015, I got my minimum, and I was out of there. But there's some more stuff that happened before I got my minimum and left, and I'll talk about that in the next video. But I'm Eric. This has been another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I will catch you all later.
Right, they change. They